Welcome to Cork City PPN's webinar. This is going to be a very quick introduction to the Public Participation Network. We're going to keep it short and sweet, and it will be available on YouTube afterwards. So if you have any questions after the webinar, you're more than welcome to submit them to us via email. So my name is Alannah. I'm the coordinator in Cork City Public Participation Network. I'm going to use PPN going forward. And Marta is tech support today, so she is the support worker that we have in Cork City PPN. So when you get emails, she's just giving a wave there, when you get emails from the PPN, it's one of the two of us behind those emails. So what is the Public Participation Network? So the PPN is a membership-based network of community and voluntary groups across a local authority area. So in this case, we are a membership network of community and voluntary groups in Cork City boundary area. We're publicly funded, volunteer run and not-for-profit. So all of our groups are volunteer run and they're not-for-profit groups. And it's important to remember when we talk about the PPN that we are independent of the local authorities. So we're independent of Cork City Council. A lot of the time people seem to think the PPN is part of City Council, but we support community representation within the City Council system, but we are not directly controlled or directed by City Council. We are part funded by them and we do collaborate with them, but we do that when our interests are aligned, if that makes sense. So, what type of community groups make up the PPN network? So all of our community groups fall into one of the three pillars that we have in the PPN. So these are community and voluntary groups, they're social inclusion groups, and they're environmental groups. Now, sometimes groups overlap on these pillars or on these topics or themes. So when you have an environmental group, you often have different groups of people and different members who are coming together. Sometimes you might do initiatives as part of your environmental work to include new communities in your area to engage with your work. So there you're ticking off both the environmental and the social inclusion, but you're also doing a little bit of community and voluntary as well. So it's up to every group themselves to decide to self-select which of the pillars best represents their interests. However, it's very intersectional. So in the PPN, regardless of what pillar you come in under in the membership, you'll always get the opportunity to network and to do work with the other pillars. The only caveat we have here is for the environmental pillar. So while you can tell us in Cork City PPN, we want to be part of the environmental pillar, membership to that pillar actually gets decided at a national level by the Irish Environmental Network. So you fill out an extra application form if you want to go into the environmental pillar, and they approve who goes in or doesn't go in. Examples of groups in different pillars. So in the community and voluntary pillar, we'd get a lot of community centres, we might get residents associations. Then within the social inclusion pillar, you might have, groups of people who volunteer and work with migrant communities. You might have lone parents. There's an example of another group in Cork City PPN is Cork Disabled Persons Organisation, so Cork DPO. So they fall in under the social inclusion pillar. And then in the environmental group, you might have community gardens. Sometimes, depending on the type of work that a Tidy Towns group does, they might come in under environmental as well. So various groups across Cork City, but everyone falls in under a particular pillar. So hi to people who have just joined. I just want to let you know that this session is being recorded. It will be available on YouTube, but even if your camera is on, people will not be able to see you during the YouTube recording. You also won't be able to unmute yourself, so if you do have any questions, please pop them into the chat and either myself or Marta will answer them at the end of the webinar. So then we have our members, they all come together, but what's the aim of the PPN is a question I often get asked. So our aim is threefold. Our core mission is to support community representation, but we also keep our members informed and we make our members stronger. So I'll elaborate on all of these. When I say we support community representation, this is the main part of our work that we should be doing in the PPN. So this means that we support community groups to have a greater say in how Cork City is run. I'm going to expand a bit more on how we do that in the next slide, but we also keep our members informed. So we act as an information and networking hub, and this is really important because it supports our core mission to support community representation. The way it does this is, or the reason we do this is because by sharing information and creating networking opportunities, we bring communities together, and by doing that, we're helping to support and enhance community capacity. When you do this, then that in turn empowers and allows the community groups in the city to become more involved and engaged with civil society, so they can feed in on the issues that impact them and their wider community. But in order to also support community representation, we need to make sure that our members have the capacity and are strong enough to do this. So we do this by providing training and policy development opportunities for our member groups. Now, there's other groups in Cork City, like Cork City Partnership, CCP, who also provide training and policy development opportunities. So I guess, how do we decide who provides which training and policy development opportunities, or how do you know who to go to? When it comes to the opportunities that the PPN provides, we always say the type of training and resources that PPNs provide is to help build the capacity of groups and representatives to be the best voice for their communities. So we provide the type of training that empowers representatives and individuals and communities to be engaged in civil society and to support the community to be represented. So CCP might provide other types of training, and that's great, but this is it's a very specific niche of training that PPN should be providing. And then, how do we ensure that the community voice is represented? So we do this in a variety of ways, and it's important that you do it in a variety of different ways because there's a load of different members in the PPN, and you want to make sure that groups have the opportunity to feed into the PPN and to feed into civil society in the way that they're most comfortable with, okay? So the first way we do this is by facilitating the nomination and the election of community representatives onto the various committees in City Council, but also onto other boards that the PPN gets representation requests from. So this means that any person in the PPN, as long as you're willing and able to become a representative, can get nominated onto the strategic policy committees or the local community development committees. And they then represent the voice of our members or the experiences of our members on these committees. So they bring that lived experience onto the same committees that the statutory stakeholders and that local councillors are on. So, like I say in the bottom of the slide there, these representatives attend meetings and make sure to voice the concerns and opinions of our PPN members in these spaces. But then, obviously, not every person is able to be a representative because we have a limited number of representative spaces, and not every person wants to be a representative, and that's perfectly okay. But often these people want to feed in to different issues that concern them. So the way we also ensure that the community voice is represented is that the PPN has consultations. Sometimes we hold these consultations in collaboration with others. So if City Council wants feedback on a particular issue, they might come to the PPN and request that we engage in a consultation with them, or we co-host a consultation. Sometimes they might request a focus group. So we can say, no problem, what types of community groups are you looking to speak to? Or what area in the city would you like us to get a focus group together from? And then we'll reach out specifically to member groups in that area or who are working on a particular topic and get feedback from them that way. And then other times what we do is we write submissions on behalf of our members. Now, one thing I will say is it's always better for each individual or each individual community to write their own submission. However, we do in the PPN make a submission on behalf of all of our members, keeping in mind that we're over 230 member organisations in Cork City. So you have to balance the views of members, and often this can be diverse, or these views can be diverse. So it tends to be a very general submission that tends to come from PPN. Submissions can be local, they can be national. If our reps tell us that there's something that's very pressing being discussed in their meetings, they can say it to staff, and staff can say, no problem, let's figure out what the views of our members are. We might send out a survey. get feedback on that, and then with the information that we get from the survey and with the documents that we've previously created in the PPN, we collate those responses and we put in a submission on behalf of our members. Any submission that we make is always put up on our website and on a resource that we call our Padlet. So all of our members are always able to view the submissions that we make on behalf of them. So again, if you have any questions on that or you want me to further elaborate on that, pop a message into the chat and I can do that as well. And then that's great, you represent the voice of communities, but what happens if we're not massively wanting to get involved in that part of the PPN? That's fine, that's okay. Sometimes people come to the PPN to network. We can do that. If you want to attend, just attend PPN events, that's also fine. If it's a case of your group has joined the PPN to find out about different grants and funding that is available, that's also fine. Sign up to our newsletter. And then there's also projects that we do. Again, we take on projects that empower our members. So this does feed back into the representing community voices, but sometimes people get involved because they want to be involved in PPN projects. We absolutely welcome that. Everybody's in the PPN for different reasons and we love them all. So we recognise that it is impossible for all of our members to come to every single consultation and event or to feed into every single survey that we circulate. You'd be doing it for your entire life if you filled in everything that the PPN sent out. Don't worry, I completely understand that. So sometimes we work on a bigger project, and when we do projects like this, we give all of our members the opportunity to get involved right from the very start. So then these projects are used to further the work of the PPN. So one of the projects that we undertook last year was called our Vision for an Inclusive Cork City. So with this, we got a focus group together at the start and we said, our members have asked that a project about inclusion in Cork City be developed. What do our members want this to look like? And it was the focus group who then came together and threw around different ideas saying, is it going to be a document? Will it be a podcast? Is it going to be a poster? Will it be a video? What is the project going to look like? And then they were the ones who came up with the basis of it. And then staff could take that mandate and say, okay, the group said, let's do a consultation, see what comes from the consultation and what that information should be presented like. In the end, it ended up being a document. I have a copy of it here behind me. So it ended up being a little booklet. But that just shows that when you get involved from the start, you can have a say in the type of things that the PPN develops. And with this project, I guess it's really important that this doesn't just stay on a shelf. We don't want any of our projects to just get dusty on a shelf. We want them to be usable, not just for the staff in the PPN, but for anybody else as well. So with this document now, we often use the phrasing of certain elements of this in our submissions that we make on behalf of members. And because all of our members are given the opportunity to feed in, to support and deliver on projects we undertake in the PPN, the work does ultimately represent the view of the collective within the PPN. So then, just two examples of different projects that we've undertaken recently. So we have our Vision for Community Wellbeing. So this is a consultation process that all PPNs use to develop their long-term goals for community wellbeing. And it identifies key issues that PPN members consider essential within their PPN for their community to be the best it can be, both now and into the future. So we developed our Vision for Community Wellbeing, and then when we were undertaking the consultation process for that particular project or that document, there was a bigger appetite to look at the topic of inclusion specifically within Cork City. So then once we finished our Vision for Community Wellbeing, we jumped right on the next train, which was the Vision for an Inclusive Cork City, and we developed a second document that ties into and complements the previous one. But we've undertaken other projects as well. So we have our Have Your Say podcast, which we developed again with our members, and that's available on Apple and Spotify. It's also available on our website. That goes into a bit more detail on the PPN and breaks down the structure a little bit more. And we hear from current and previous members of the PPN, and they talk about their experience within the PPN. So that's quite an interesting listen. We've also developed a strategic plan, which outlines what we would like to achieve in Cork City PPN over the coming years. So there are 4 projects that we've worked on in the past 3 to 4 years. But again, we're always looking for new ideas and different things to do. So if anybody does have any examples of projects, always feel free to feed them into staff and we can see where we can go from there. So now that I've gotten you all excited about the PPN, I guess I want to learn more. What can I do next? There's lots of different things to do, and it's not a linear path of what can you do next to get involved in the PPN or to learn more. It depends on where you're at, and everybody's at a different level. So sometimes you might not yet be a member of the PPN. So if your community group isn't a member of the PPN, we'd encourage you to join. Or maybe you don't want to become a member yet, you just want to sign up to the newsletter to learn a bit more. That's also okay. Sometimes an individual might not realize that their organization is already a member of the PPN, so you can check up our member directory on the website to see if you're actually part of the PPN already, and maybe, you know, become more active is also an option. You can come to a PPN event. We have plenaries there where all of our PPN members are a plenary is when all of our PPN members come together, kind of like an AGM, or you can come to a linkage group. So linkage groups are forums whereby our members can come together and discuss a particular topic that is of interest to them. So we have all of the dates for these in our newsletter and up on our website. Sometimes we're out collaborating with the likes of City Council at events around the city. So you can come up and say hello to myself or Marta or any of our members who are at the stand. If you want, you can attend induction to learn more about the structure of the PPN. Often we hear that the PPN is complex. It is, or it's difficult to learn about. The PPN is complex. There's a lot of different moving parts. So if you want us to break down these parts a bit more, we do that in induction. So you're more than welcome to join induction. Check out our website, media, or our Padlet. You'll have all of the information there. I'm going to show you how to navigate to these resources at the end. Or you can engage with a PPN representative. I know we have a few on the call here today, so it's great to see you. We have some surveys that are open at the moment because we're going to be making submissions to different things. So you can fill out the survey and share your thoughts with us, and we'll include those in our submission. Or if you really want, we're always looking for PPN representatives, linkage group facilitators, or members to join our secretariat. So there's lots of different ways that you can get involved. It depends on how much time you have, or like what you want to get from the PPN as well. That's really important to remember. So that's my quick rundown. I hope that wasn't too painful. Only 20 minutes as I promised, Brian. So we did get in a few questions. So I'm going to go through some of those now and we'll just check the chat to see if anybody has any other questions. And again, like I was saying, if when we finish this webinar, you think of something that you wanted to ask us, just pop myself and Marta an email or give us a call. We're always more than happy to chat to people. So you can see our information just on the bottom right there. I will be sharing these slides with everybody who attended today, so don't worry about taking down too many notes. I'll send them on to you. And this recording will also be available on YouTube, so you can go back and watch it at your own leisure. Okay, so let's see some of the questions that we got. So one of the questions we got is there opportunities for connections and getting to know about funding opportunities that are not made public? So that's kind of two different questions in one. So is there opportunities for connections? Yes, we have our plenaries, we have linkage group meetings. If you want to reach out to another group in your area, you can look up the membership directory and you'll find the information on other PPN groups in your area and you can reach out to them directly. If you can't find their contact information, always feel free to email staff and we'll see if we can put you in touch with each other. And then about getting to know about possible funding opportunities that are not made public. So all of the funding opportunities that we share in the PPN are always public. If it's a funding opportunity, we want people to know about it. The people who are giving the funding want people to know about it. So we get our funding opportunities, we collate them from a variety of resources. Sometimes it's from government departments, sometimes it's from city council, sometimes it's from local community groups, sometimes it's from philanthropists. This information that we share has been collated or we get that from somewhere else, so it's all publicly available. Maybe the person is asking, is it a case of you're only eligible, or is there certain funding that you're only eligible for if you're a member of the PPN? In Cork City, no, that's not you don't have to be a member of the PPN to find out about some funding resources. The PPN ourselves, we don't give away funding. We just inform people about what funding is available. And as far as I'm aware, there's no grants or anything that you need to tick a box on in Cork City saying I'm a member of the PPN that makes you eligible for certain funding. So then someone else asked, I want an overview of CCPPN to see how our group can benefit from it. So hopefully, but from that presentation, you'll figure out different ways that you can benefit from it. Ultimately, I guess our goal, like I was saying, is to facilitate community representation and making sure community groups get a say in what's happening locally. So hopefully your group will figure out a way to do that with us, whether that's engaging with a representative directly or feeding it to staff or attending a linkage group. We'd love to see you getting engaged. Maybe it's a case of you want to network a bit more with other groups locally. Again, we can absolutely facilitate that in the PPN. If it's a case of you want to come to a plenary, we can introduce you to people, or you can reach out to us and we can tell you what other groups are in your area and see if they'd be willing to meet up with you. And then we have a question from one of our reps just coming to the event to see how you describe the PPN so I can improve on describing it. Kira, I'm sure you do that fantastically already, but this video again will be available on YouTube, so if you want to share it with anybody or if you want to look over it yourself to give yourself a brief reminder of how to describe the PPN, hopefully you will find that helpful. So then we had another question from someone saying, I talked to someone, I know someone who's in the PPN, I've been talking to them, and they say that the PPN is sometimes difficult to understand. Yes, the PPN is a complex organisation, and that's because there's loads of different moving parts. And we, the PPN, are here, but we also engage with City Council, and that is a complex institution with many moving parts as well. So yes, there's lots of acronyms that are used. There's lots of different ways of saying things. Sometimes the language can feel quite high level. But what we do in the PPN is we aim to be less hierarchical. Hopefully we'll get better at doing that. We operate in a flat structure here in the PPN, so that means no community group or no individual has any more of a say than any other individual. Or another way of saying that is everyone has an equal say. So that can then sometimes make it even more complex. But if you do want to learn more about the PPN and the different structures and the different committees and the different ways that we engage with City Council, you can absolutely come to our induction. We'll send you out a link on how to sign up for that as well as part of the follow-up email that will go out. The other thing is we have developed a podcast called Have Your Say, and one of the episodes on this podcast breaks down the structure of the PPN a bit more in a very easy to understand way. So I'd recommend going to listen to that. So that's freely available on Apple and Spotify, but we also have it available on our website. So we'll share that with you as well, and you can take a listen to it. And then Marta, did any other questions come into you? I think.
See them in the chat there.
Oh, can you post them to me and I'll answer because I can't actually see them.
I'll just ask them to you there. So what YouTube channel will this video be on? And also, I think you've already answered that, but the presentation deck, will it also be on the website? I can answer that, yes. But what, yeah, so that, maybe if you want to say the YouTube channel.
Yeah, perfect. So we have a Cork City PPN YouTube channel. We'll send you out the link directly to this video and where you can find it, but it's Cork City PPN. That's the YouTube channel. And then Marta will also be sharing the slides with you directly, and we'll pop the slides up on the website as well, and we'll give you a link to these locations so you can find everything very easily. Do you have anything to add?
About the funding, the PPN is part funded by Cork City Council, or who else part funds?
Perfect. So the PPN is funded by DRCDG, which stands for the Department of Rural and Community Development, and the Gaeltacht, they got tagged on there. And then it's part funded by Cork City Council. So basically we're funded through your taxpayer money. So even more reason that you should get involved. Make sure you're having your say as to what your money is getting spent on and making sure your voice is being represented. Then the PPN can also apply for funding through different sources. So in other PPNs, We don't currently do this in Cork City, but in other PPNs, sometimes they receive SICAP funding, which is Social Inclusion Activation Programme funding. SICAP. Yes, I got that right, I think. So SICAP funding through the local community development committee. Sometimes if it's a case of a PPN is on an interagency with other people and there's a project that they want to develop, sometimes the PPN can get funded in that way. But in general, our core funding comes from the Department of Rural Community Development and the Gaeltacht and the local authority in which we are based, so that is Cork City Council. Are there any other questions?
So where is the PPN based? And does it have an office?
We do have an office. I'm currently in my office. So we're up in Mayfield at the moment. We're hosted in St. Joseph's Community Association. We love it here. We're up here. Well, I'm up here most of the time at the moment anyway. So if you ever want to pop by for a cup of tea or a coffee, you can send me a text or send me an email and you're more than welcome to come up and visit. We do also sometimes work from City Hall, depending on what's happening. And then we're out and about in communities as well. So when there's an event on, we could be anywhere. So yeah, if you want to invite us over anytime, we'd be more than happy to visit different community places around the city as well. And that's everything? Perfect, Kulabula. Thank you so much for attending today. If anybody has any other questions, just feel free to pop us an email or give us a call, and we'll send on the rest of the information. Thank you so much for coming today. It was lovely to have you all here. Bye. Just gonna stop